So the last time we were here, I started off with a couple silly questions just to make a point, and I'll just, recap and go over what we talked about. But so I started off last time with the question, should I or should I not cheat on my spouse? And the simple answer is no, I should not cheat on my spouse. Should I or should I not take care of my children? Yes, I should take care of my children. Should I or should I not lie? Should not. So, again, those questions are really simple. Those are those really easy black and white, very first things, very question. We call those moral decisions. Those right or wrong, black or white, things that are right in front of us kind of deal. And those are pretty easy questions. And it's simple to answer those questions. If somebody puts you on the spot, you can answer those in a heartbeat without flinching. But everything doesn't fit in that specific category. As a matter of fact, I would say the majority of decisions that we make in our life are not that black and white. They're not that very straightforward answer. I give you another example of, what if you go into work tomorrow and your supervisor calls you into work and they bring you in and they say, you know what, we've been watching you work and you've been doing a fantastic job. And you've just been blowing it out of the water. You are the best worker we've seen in a long time, and we really appreciate all the work you've done. And just want to let you know that a new position's come open, and we want to put you in that position. It's going to be a major upgrade in benefits. There's going to be a 25% pay raise. We want to move you in that position. And you're getting all excited, and then at the moment he's like, but we're going to move you to Idaho. And then all of a sudden, that's not just this very easy question to answer of whether or not do I want to do this. Now we have to start thinking about, thinking about our spouses, thinking about children, thinking about all the other things. It's not one of those clear-cut answers. It's one of those things that, well, what do I do? I don't know what to do. What should I do? So there's those decisions, like I said, we face in our life that fit into that moral category that are the right or wrong. But again, most of them fit into that category of kind of that gray area. What should I do? Think about some of the things that you've probably faced in your life. Should I or should I not get married? Which school should I go to? Should we have another child? Should we adopt a child? Should we spend this money or not? Should we do these things? Should we do that things? And it's just, those everyday normal things that we face all the time that could go either way. You could answer them either way. There's no real right or wrong answer in that choice, but you have to think about it. And we get in those situations, and a lot of times we start thinking about how we got there and what we're doing, and we think about all those answers, and we think, you know what, if we live our life in a moral way, if we live our life in a right way or a wrong way, or if we have the smarts to get through the situation, or if we just have enough success in our life, then these kind of things won't pop up. These will just take care of themselves. If we have the morality, the smarts, and the success, then we don't have to worry about that. But the truth is, and we talked about this last week or on Wednesday or Sunday night, that's just not true, because we all know people in all these situations and all these things that I've talked about that fit in these categories. They've got the morality, they've got some smarts, or they're in success, but yet they're probably some of the most miserable people that we meet. First of all, think about the moral people. Think about the moral people that that follow all the rules, that do all the right things. There were people just like those in Jesus' time. We talked about those, and those were the Pharisees. They followed all the rules. They checked off all the check marks. They said all the right things, prayed all the right prayers, did all the right things, but Jesus said that they were completely unknown to God. They were far from God. They were just whitewashed sepulchres. They were just empty tombs. And those were the moral compass of the people of Israel. I mean, they were the elite of the elite. And then you can think about people that that may be just a little bit smarter than you are, or those that are like the academia people that you see. And for the most part, you think about them and you're like, I would never even want to remotely be around this person. They are not very kind. They always want to flaunt and talk about all their right decisions and all the right things that they know and all the smart things they know. But yet they are a complete wreck when it comes to relationships, or they're a complete wreck when it comes to social matters. So smarts and morality are not the perfect thing to make a perfect life or make a happy life or to help make good decisions. And then finally, you think about people that have success. Think about the movie stars. Think about all the people out there that make a whole lot more money than we do, and come to find out they have the exact same problems that we do. It's just amplified 100,000 times more than what we have. So success is not always the answer to things. Think about it. I talked about it last week or on Sunday night, that you talk about when you lay in bed and you think about, if I just had a little bit more money, if I just had a little bit more success, if our house was just a little bit more bigger, if all these things, if our business would take off, if our house would sell, just these little tiny things, if it was just one more thing, then we would be in that perfect position, in that perfect place. And we talked about, and I mentioned that the fact that if that thing actually did come through, if the thing that you were thinking about in your mind would actually come through, I guarantee you that you would find yourself in another position if it was just this one more. Because it's never enough. And the fact of it is if the problem came in and all of a sudden you had an immediate answer, the problem is that you're still there. The same decisions that you made that got you in that decision are probably going to be the same decisions you make with that thing, and you're going to end up right back in the same spot that you were before. So what is the secret? What is the secret? If it is not morality, if it's not smarts, if it's not success, what is the secret to making right choices? What's the secret to making better decisions? And that answers what we started talking about last week in the book of Proverbs, is wisdom. Wisdom is better. Proverbs 8:10-11 says, "Receive my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things one may desire cannot be compared with her." It's better than gold. It's better than silver. It's better than most things that we can place value on. Wisdom is better than morality. Yes, wisdom will make you more of a moral person, but it'll make more of a moral person, but it's still better. If you didn't have the wisdom and you just had the moral, you don't have the whole complete package. Wisdom is better than being smart. Wisdom makes you smarter in the decisions that you make. And wisdom is better than success and wealth, because wisdom can bring you that success and wealth without all the issues and problems that go along with it. And we begin to talk about how King Solomon, who is long considered in the Bible the wisest man out there. If we took a poll of people, I guarantee you Solomon would somewhere end up in that decision, especially among church folks. And we talked about how King Solomon had went through this process and how he became king of Israel and how he became what we know today as the wisest man to walk on earth. That whole story and the whole mess up that was going on with Israel when David died. Here was David, the greatest king in Israel. The guy that had led all the armies and led them to great victories and to great success. And he was so beloved by all the people of Israel. And he was on his deathbed. And everybody knew that the time was coming near. And then Solomon's brother, Adonijah, decides, you know what? I'm the oldest. I'm just going to be the king. And so he gets a little group of people and he decides that he's going to take over and try to be the king. And somebody comes and tells Bathsheba that, hey, this is happening. And she runs and tells David. And David's like, no. That's not what I want happen. Solomon is supposed to be the king. And so there's a whole series of events that happen, and eventually Solomon is named the king of Israel. And his brother comes around and he starts running his mouth a little bit. Well, Solomon just automatically puts the end of that problem and he has him executed. But the state of Israel was in disarray. Here we have the beloved King David has now passed away, and now there's this big fight that's going on between brothers, and now one brother's dead, and now we're left with Solomon. Is he the right guy? Is he the person that we're supposed to follow? Is this the person that's going to lead us into the next era of glory or whatever? And Solomon realizes, and he understands at that point, or even before that point, that he realizes that, listen, I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Yes, God has placed me to be the king of Israel, but I'm not sure exactly how to do this. And so he gathers all the people, and Solomon goes in and he starts to pray, and God visits him. And God asks him while he's praying, he says, what can I do for you? What can I make happen? What can I do for you? And Solomon didn't ask for wealth and riches and things, and he thought about it, and Solomon said in 2 Chronicles 1:10, he says, give me wisdom and knowledge, that I may lead this people, for who is able to govern this great people of yours? Solomon realized, and if you went back in verse 6, he says, I'm walking around doing this like I'm a child. I don't know exactly what's going on. And he was humble enough to understand that, listen, I'm supposed to lead these people. I'm supposed to take them where God wants them to go. These are God's people, and I have no clue what I'm doing. Yes, I could pray for whatever. Here's God standing before him. What can I do for you? And Solomon said, give me wisdom and knowledge that I can lead these people the way that you want them led. And God said, because you've not asked for all these other things, I'm going to give you wisdom, and then I'm going to add these things with it. And so finally, I define the word wisdom as basically being good at life. It's a very weird definition. It's probably something you've never heard before, but when you think about it, wisdom is understanding and using that knowledge that you have and you have learned to be able to navigate this life. That's basically what it is. It's actually being good at life, being able to make decisions, being able to make choices, being able to thrive in any situation. That's what wisdom will give you. So if that's the question, and if that's what Solomon was looking at in that situation, and he wants to tell us how to use wisdom, then the question is how do we operate in wisdom? How do we get this wisdom? How do we learn about wisdom? And then how do we operate in it better? How do we get better at life? How do we get better at using the wisdom that he has provided for our life? And I think the examples that I'm going to give you tonight, I think you'll understand it. It'll make it a little bit easier in pictures. We're going to look in the first chapter of Proverbs. So if you've got your Bibles, you can go ahead and turn into there. Because this is the thing. How do we get better at life? How do we get better at wisdom? How do we get better at using wisdom? Just take a step back and think about this. How do you get better at anything? How do you get better at football, basketball, mathematics, teaching, engineering, medicine, being a mechanic? How do you get better at doing that? You practice. There has to be a time of study, a time of training, a time where you have to back up, step back and look and have to understand what you're doing. You have to look at how the rules and what makes everything work. And for many people, they spend years developing the skill in that particular area. It doesn't matter what you're doing. There has to be a time in which you submit yourself to learning your craft, your trade, your practice. Whatever it is, you have to spend that time learning what that is. So imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and you felt a pain in your stomach and you're like, oh, that's not good. I don't know what it is, but it's not good, and it's starting to hurt really bad. And you look around at your spouse or whoever you're with, and they're like, I think you need to go to the doctor. And so you call the doctor's office and you set up an appointment, and they say, come on in, and you get in your car and you drive in there, and you get there, and the nurse brings you back, and they set you in that room, and then come walking in a guy wearing a clown suit. And you're going to be, is something wrong? Why are you wearing a clown suit? And he looks at you and says, well, because I'm a clown. Well, I don't need a clown. I need a doctor. And he's like, well, you know what? I've always wanted to be a doctor. It just didn't work out where I could go to school and I couldn't train to be a doctor, but I always wanted to be one. And I thought, look, I have watched enough House on TV, and I've watched all these surgery shows on Discovery Channel. I mean, I know all about the human body. I wanted to be a doctor. And so today I woke up and I called the doctor's office and I said, hey, I want to be a doctor. And they said, well, come on in. What are you going to do? You're going to get up and walk out. You're going to run away screaming for the most part, like, hey, I'm not letting you touch me or do anything to me. You have not put in the time. You have not put in the training at time. That you've not seen enough to be a doctor. You don't understand what makes the body tick. You don't understand the realities and the rules of what you're about to do. Solomon realized at the moment that he was made king that he needed the wisdom to be able to lead, and he knew that he didn't have it. It was not something, he knew that it was not something he was going to wake up with tomorrow and be like, oh, Lord, I'm glad, I know it all now. He knew that, recognized that wisdom is a process. It's a way that you have to walk through, a way that you have to submit yourself to understand the rules and the realities of how life works. King Solomon recognized that the rules that govern life are just like the rules that apply to anything else. Do you realize, do you even think about that there are rules that go, or not regulation, but just rules and boundaries and ways to do things in this world? There are systems in place that with the way that we have to operate and function in this world. Do you realize that there's ways to make your relationships better? There's ways to make your marriages better. If I woke up every morning and smacked Hannah across the face and said, "Woman, get up and get my breakfast," how many of you know that that relationship is not going to last very long? You're probably going to read about me in the obituaries because she waited till I was dead asleep and stabbed me. You know? There's rules and principles about how money works. There's ways to do budgets and all these things. There's ways and systems that the way that money works in this world. There are rules and techniques and things that you can do in this life that can make your life better by just doing the process. And we've talked about this before, but that is the area that we live in this life now, that everybody wants to get from point A to point B in the fastest way possible. And years ago, being around my dad, working in the construction business, you don't build a house in a day. And if you do build a house in a day, the person that's getting ready to move into it, I feel very, 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 very sorry for. Because it's not going to stand very long. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be very structurally sound. But the thing of it is that most people are walking around completely unaware that they're not walking in the wisdom that's available. They're struggling with so many things in life. And they're thinking, what can I do? What do I need to do? What can I do? I need to do this. I need to be here. I need to have this. I need this one thing to happen. You've got all these needs and wants happening all at one time, and you're not looking. You're looking for, dear Jesus, let that miracle happen tomorrow. When He's telling you and He's calling to you with wisdom to make the right steps, to make the right choices, and it's not going to be easy. Solomon understood if you're going to be good at life, you're going to have to spend some time. Submit yourself to learning what those rules, those guidelines, and those boundaries are so that you can leverage that information to help you make wise decisions in this life. And as we start in the book of Proverbs, the very first chapter is amazing. Because he's going to write down and he's going to basically give you the instruction set of what wisdom is going to do and how wisdom works. It's basically a training manual of how to live life. And he just starts out from the basic. He lays down the process for you to take, the steps for you to take to become wise in your life. So we'll start in verse 2. Proverbs 1 verse 2. It says, "For learning what wisdom and discipline are, for understanding insightful sayings, for receiving wise instruction in righteousness, justice, and integrity, for teaching shrewdness to the inexperienced, knowledge and discretion for the young man. And a wise man will listen and increase in his learning, and a discerning man will obtain guidance. For understanding a proverb or a parable, these words are the wise and their riddles." Man, this is a lot. Just in 4 little verses, he is explaining things that most of us don't. He's calling all of us out. He says he starts from the young man. And he says even the wise man who's already wise will know these things. And even the discerning man, someone who can even just look at the situation, will be able to glean from wisdom. These are the 5 words that are used in this first 4 verses. You've got learn, understand, listen, receive, obtain. All these words, when you look at these words, these are all words that are in a position of submission. You have to be under somebody and be willing to listen and understand, to learn. You have to spend time around somebody and watch things be done in a process to be able to understand. You have to be able to be quiet and pay attention to be able to listen. You have to be humble to be able to receive. And then you have to be diligent to be able to obtain. And that's not something that starts at point A and point B and gets done in a day. These are all submissive things. All of these things indicate that we have to do something. We have to be in a position to be able to step back and say, I need help. I need something. And again, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not something you fix overnight. It's not something that you start on Monday and you fix on Saturday. There's some things that we can do in this life that are that way, but life in general is a process. And it's something that we have to be humble enough for our entire lives. Again, he starts out and he says, the young man, and he ends up with the wise man. We learn, we obtain, we listen, we understand, we receive. The wise man does this his entire life. We have to be humble enough to be able to admit that maybe we don't know everything. That's hard. That's hard. Because again, this world wants to judge us among what we do right at this very moment. The mistakes that we made in the past, they want to hold it against us. They want to hold all those things and say, you know what? You were a bad seed then, you've got to be a bad seed now. And it's easy for us to step back and in those situations when somebody's judging us or making something to step back and say, you know what? I don't even need you. I don't need any of you. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to grab it by the horns and I'm going to do this thing on my own. I'm going to figure it out. And we get in those processes and it's easy for us to get lost and realize, hey, listen, we don't know everything. When we read these words, we're being disciplined and challenged all at the same time. These are words of correction. When I first started in ministry and I first started at the church I was working at 15 years ago, or almost 20 years ago now, one of the things that the pastor used to do to me all the time, it started out as a joke, but it kind of it made a lot of sense later in life. But one of the things he would used to say to me, because I used to ask 100 million questions all the time. He used to look at me and he'd say, shut up, Dave. Shut up, Dave. And I'd be like, oh, shut up. And I at first was like, why are you telling me to shut up? I want to know the answer. I'm asking you a question. And the more I started paying attention and the more I started listening, I realized that if I would just listen enough, I would have my question answered. But I had to show up. I had to be there. I wasn't going to get it through osmosis, but I needed to listen. But these things right here are not something that we just pick up on a natural tendency. This bucks our normal system of way of doing things. We don't always want to learn, understand, listen, receive, obtain. We want to buck that system because, you know what? We're an adult. You know? I don't need you or anybody else telling me what I need to do. I got to the point where I have my own job, I have my own vehicle, I can do my own thing. I don't need you to tell me anything. We think that because we're an adult that, you know what, I've worked hard to get here, I can do what I want to, I can buy what I want to, I can eat what I want to. If I want to go home tonight, pull out the entire carton of vanilla ice cream, plop down on the couch, put all the chocolate, all of it, I mean the whole bottle of chocolate syrup on top of it, take the spoon, eat the entire thing. I can, because you know what? I'm an adult. I paid for that ice cream. I can eat all of it. That's the way that we think. I don't need somebody to tell me that, whoa, you might ought to not eat the entire thing of ice cream. You know, it's probably better if you just eat a couple scoops of that ice cream. No, I'm eating the whole thing. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to eat it tonight. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to eat that whole thing for breakfast in the morning. Because why not? I'm an adult. I can eat ice cream for breakfast and be perfectly fine. Yes. That's what got me to the clown. But think about it. That's the way our society is. If doing what we want to do what we want to do, and if that makes us an adult, and if that makes us somebody that makes right choices and someone that succeeds in life, Solomon would say to you that doing what you should be doing what you should when you should do it. That's what makes you wise. Not doing what you can. We have this saying at work all the time because I work in the communications department and we have a marketing team. There's a lot of things that we can do. But the question is, should we do those things? We can do a lot. We can say a lot. We can have the ability to do a lot of things. But the question is, should we do those things? Wisdom is not looking at your life and saying, I get to dictate what my life is. It's the ability to be able to look at life and thrive no matter what happens. Whatever's going on, whatever situation's going on, I'm going to be able to move forward in that situations. He goes on in Proverbs 1:7, it says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. He says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and that fools despise wisdom and discipline. This is where he takes all that he just talked about with all this stuff, and he says, all this stuff you need to do, but the beginning is the fear of the Lord. Now, we're not talking about fear, trembling, get behind this pulpit and hide, and I'm afraid of God. The idea here in the Hebrew, when you look it up, is a thing of respect, of reverence. Am I listening? Am I understanding? Am I learning? Am I receiving? Am I putting myself in a place of submission where I am looking to God for my solutions? Am I revering or respecting His choices and the decisions and the way that He's laid out life to make the right thing? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I'm going to start with one that I know, and then I'm going to finish with one I don't know. Electricity is a great thing. It's amazing. It's one of the greatest discoveries of human history. All of us in here have grew up with electricity. We've all had it. It's all been in our houses. We're not a generation that didn't have it. Can you even fathom, can you even think about or even imagine what life today would be like if we didn't have it? I'm not talking about getting knocked out because of a storm and not having it for 2 days. I'm talking about your everyday normal routine of going through things if you didn't have electricity. We wouldn't have lights. We wouldn't have ovens. We wouldn't have refrigerators in our house. You wouldn't have running water pumped in your house. Electricity is an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to think about, the little simple things that we don't think about, that you can walk into this room and the lights be dark and you just reach over and touch a 38-cent plastic switch, flip it to the up position, and every light just immediately flood on in here in the instant. You probably don't think about it, but right outside on the highways right now are these big, huge wooden poles that are going down the road that have this huge amount of voltage that send the total amount of power to run this entire church and everything that goes on it and all the neighborhoods in this area. Just sitting right out there on those poles. We don't think about any of that. Electricity is an amazing thing. We run around with it all around us all the time. There are rules, There are scientific laws that have been written that govern electricity. There are boundaries to what we can do with electricity. But still yet, we walk around right here, right now, looking around this room. Electricity is surrounding us everywhere that we're at. And yet, we're unharmed. Electricity doesn't hate you. It doesn't care whether you're here or not. It's not sitting here in this outlet right now going, you know what? If that guy gets another step closer, I'm shooting some lightning bolts on him. Electricity's not out to get you. But here's the thing. If we lose sight of how powerful electricity really is, or if we're just completely ignorant of how powerful electricity really is, the consequences are going to be severe. If you went home right now and just took off the electrical panel of your house, pulled that thing right off, looked under those breakers and took your hand and just shoved it right in the middle of it, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty at all. Electricity is a powerful tool, but when we don't respect it, it can destroy us. It could kill us. When we look at the way that we approach life, and we walk and we look in this book and you start to read the book of Proverbs and you start realizing how important and powerful wisdom is. And if we take the right foundation and keep God at the foundation of those things, God is an amazing, amazing tool in our life. He's not just the tool, He's the creator. He's all those things in our life. He's ever present. But if we have no knowledge of how He works or how He does things, period, then we walk around not being able to experience the fullness of those things. And a matter of fact, we may take the wrong step and do something stupid that will affect our lives forever. Was it God's fault? Or was it our ignorance of His wisdom that was out there? People want to know why should you read the Bible? Why should you read it? Yes, it's full of hope. It brings us joy. It brings us comfort. It brings us peace. It brings us all these things when we read it. It brings faith. It helps build us up in dark times. But it's also the instruction manual of life, guys. The moment that you walked up to the front of wherever you were, riding in your car, doing whatever, and you accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, there wasn't a floating angel that came down and handed you the whole, the mighty, powerful hard drive that came off of God's computer for you to plug into your leg that uploaded every bit of information that you needed to know to succeed in this life. It didn't. There was a miracle that happened at that moment. You stepped out of darkness into light. You came from something that was bound into something that was free. You became a child of the Most High God. It all happened, whether you realized it or not. And for some of you were scared to death when you got saved, because the reason you got saved is because you didn't want to go to hell. That was it. I needed the fire insurance. I don't want to go to hell. It seems like a very scary place. And so when you walked away, you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. But nothing changed. Nothing changed other than the things that you could not see. Your life was still your life. You still looked exactly the same that you looked the day that you got saved. You didn't turn into some supermodel whether you wanted to or not. You didn't lose any weight. You didn't become all of a sudden just a super nice person. Things were exactly the same. But now you had access to something that maybe you didn't realize that you had access to. We want to talk about life change. We want to talk about all these things. We want things to happen in our lives. But we need to realize that God has placed these things in our lives. He's placed people in our lives. He's placed His Word in our lives. He's placed the Spirit in our lives to lead us and guide us and to help us in this process that we call life. He didn't ever say it was going to be easy. As a matter of fact, He kept saying it over and over. You're going to have trials and tribulations in this life. You're going to have them. They're going to show up. You're going to have problems. But He also said, don't get concerned in it. I've overcome the world. He didn't leave us hanging out there. But there are things in this life that has the process that we need to learn. There is wisdom out there for us to find to help us succeed and move in this life. So several years ago, way before I got married, my first car was a 1984 Chevrolet S10 Blazer, red and white. I loved that car. I wish I still had that car to this day. I literally drove it till the motor fell out of it. And I'm not kidding you. I got on interstate, mashed the gas one time, and that car said, I pulled over to the side, motor fell right out of my car. I love that car. It made more noises. It was a rust bucket. I swear I still wish I had that car. One of the guys I used to work with would get in the car and he'd like, can you not hear that back glass rattling in there? And I'm like, yeah, I can hear it. And he's like, why don't you get that fixed? And I was like, hang on, I'm going to fix it. And he's like, what? And I reached over, I turned the radio up just a few more notches. You couldn't hear the black glass rattle anymore. Okay? Love that car. That car would not pass inspection. It had several holes in the muffler and all this other stuff. So towards the end of the life of that car, I had to get an inspection on it. Well, I knew it wasn't going to pass inspection. And this was back when you had the sticker in the windshield, you know. And the person that we used to get our inspection stickers from, we used to be able to, I'm not going to say any names, but you used to be able to drive on a car lot sometimes, hand somebody $20, and magically, a inspection sticker would show up or tag would show up in your window, just magically. Right or wrong, whatever. But anyway, the guy that we used to do that with went out of business, and so we couldn't do that anymore. And so I used to keep my ball cap in the front windshield. And so, yes, I knew my car wouldn't pass inspection, but I literally had my ball cap over that thing. I forgot to go get my car inspected. So I was leaving my house and pulled out on Summers Road and was going down, and they never, ever in my entire life, but the one time this happened, ever had a license check on Summers Road. Ever. And so I pulled down, and I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, they're going to give me a ticket for my tag being out. And so, you know, you do what every human being does. When they come up there, like, they look at your tag, and they go back and look on the tag in your car, and they're like, do you know your inspection sticker's out? And you're like, oh, no. I didn't know my inspection was out. Man. Well, that works when your car's like 4 or 5 weeks out of inspection. When it's like 5 months out of inspection, they don't play very nicely. They don't buy that little white lie that you just told in front of God and everybody, you know. And so he was like, well, you just pull over here to the side. So I had to wait, and I'm like, man, I am going to get a ticket. And sure enough, he come back there and he gave me a ticket for whatever it was. It was like $100 or something for my inspection sticker. And I'm like, man. And so I had to go like call somebody on the phone and figure out how I was going to get this Blazer inspected. So I had to get that thing inspected so I could go get my car tag. So I went and did all that, found somebody that would give me a sticker, and I drove to the tag office. And so when you're standing in the tag office, if you'll ever notice on that wall, they have, or the one in Morganton anyway, they've got this wall of like all these like regulations and reminders to get your service inspections and stuff done. And one of the things that's on the wall there, though, is a big sign that says, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. It's just not. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And you know, that's one of those things you don't think anything about and you just think that in every time that you ever get pulled or you ever get caught doing something, that's the first thing that we do always. We play ignorant. We play stupid. Like, I have no idea how that ended up in my car, or I don't have any idea how this happened. I don't know. Or generally you started off with, well, what had happened was, officer, look, this is, it's never going to work out. It's never going to work out. It's just one of those things. And unfortunately, they put that in the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Now, I'm not talking about, the point I'm trying to make here, I'm not trying to talk about the law as in the Mosaic law. But listen, guys, there are some really simple things that have to happen in life that are just natural, common sense things. There is wisdom in this world that will let you get through this life if we're just willing to accept it, if we're willing to listen. That smart wisdom that tells me when I wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I should slap Hannah this morning. And that thing in my brain says, no! That's wisdom. That's wisdom. That's wisdom, guys. That's absolute wisdom. And since I didn't do that, I get to stay married another day. Or alive. I get to stay alive another day. But think about it. I mean, seriously, think about it right now. If you were to, all of a sudden, you're sitting in here, you get all motivated and inspired. You know what? I've listened to a message today. I can do anything. God's pumped me up. I'm just so jacked up. I'm going home right now. I'm going to go home. I'm going to pack a bag. And you go home and you pack a travel bag and you throw it in the back of your car. You drive down to the airport and you buy you a ticket to Nepal. And you just get on a plane and you make a couple stops and you've got you and a travel bag. And I'm talking about you're wearing a pair of flip-flops, a pair of shorts, and a t-shirt, and you've got a bag that's got a change of underwear in it, and you have now got on a plane and you have flown to Nepal. You get off the plane at Nepal and you find the first taxi and you said, hey, take me to the foot of Mount Everest. I'm climbing Mount Everest. And the guy looks at you and goes, okay. Gets in the car and he drives you to Mount Everest. And you jump out of that car and you grab your bag and you throw that bag down to the side and you just start heading up to Mount Everest. You're not looking for a guide. You're not looking for a map. You're not looking for anybody to help you. You're just going to head up Mount Everest. I can do this. I can do anything. I'm climbing Mount Everest. And so you just hut yourself up Mount Everest. And the next day we get a report in the magazines that says, man dies while trying to climb Mount Everest. Because you have just froze to death. Because you didn't have no preparation. You didn't have no gear. You didn't have any training. And I guarantee you there will be no report. Zero. There'll be nobody talking about it. Nothing. There will be no reporter that says, well, we have no idea why that person died. That mountain is really unpredictable, and the mountain just decided to kill him today. There will be no report. There will be no report. What's really going to happen is, at some point in time, during the day, whether it's in the paper or the news or just common talk between people, there's going to be like, that crazy ignorant person, did you see them get out of that taxi, run up that mountain like a crazy wild man with no preparation, nothing. And they just went up there and died because they're ignorant. They're crazy. They're stupid. They paid the price for their ignorance. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. But we do it all the time. With the little things, the normal things. But when we go down a little bit further in Proverbs chapter 1, Solomon says in verse 20, he says, wisdom calls out in the street. She raises her voice in the public square. She cries out above the commotion, and she speaks at the entrance of the city gates. Listen, guys, God makes it very clear. Not only does he tell us that we have the Spirit of God living on the inside of us that will lead us and to guide us into all truth. The person that if we'll take the time to ask will help us in all situations. But he also said at every moment, wherever we are, that wisdom is calling out. It says wisdom is calling out in the street. She's raising her voices in the public square. Wherever you are, there is a voice of wisdom that is happening somewhere around you. Look, something is happening. There is somebody that is speaking, that is saying something that is wise. There is wisdom in all areas. It also says that if it's not enough, if it's not enough for you to be able to try to determine what that wisdom is, it says that she will cry out above all the commotion, all the mess and all the things. Listen, I've done stupid things in my life. I have been at places and had a decision placed in front of me, and everything in my body said, don't do it. My brain sending every red light to every signal to every part of my body, shaking, doing whatever it can to no, don't do it. No. Get the queasy feeling in your stomach. You got that feeling like, I probably shouldn't do this. I really shouldn't do this. You get the trembles like, this doesn't feel right. I shouldn't do this. And it's just, and everything in you saying no. And then the very moment you're like, yep, doing it. And then all of a sudden the consequence happens and you're like, well, why did that happen? I don't have a clue. What? I have no idea what's going on in this situation. I have no idea. But it says that she will cry out above the commotion. Listen, you know when you're in that moment. You know it. And it says that she is speaking at the entrance of the city gates, and it's saying, listen, I love this. It says, how long, foolish ones, will you love ignorance? How long are you going to be stupid? Wisdom is crying out. How long are you going to love ignorance? It says, how long will you mockers enjoy mocking, and you fools hate knowledge? It says, if you respond to my warnings, then I will pour out my Spirit on you and teach you my words. And since I called out and you refused, I extended my hand and no one paid attention, since you neglected all my counsel and did not accept my correction. Listen, guys, this is the important part. Verse 26, it says, wisdom. It's talking about wisdom here. It's not talking about God. It's not talking about the Holy Spirit. But natural wisdom in this moment says that I have called out to you. I have screamed at you. I've tried to get your attention as many ways as I can, and you've refused. I've extended my hand. You didn't pay attention. I have sent people to talk to you, and you have neglected the counsel. It says you did not accept my correction. It says in verse 26, I, in turn, will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, and when trouble, stress overcomes you. Listen, in every one of those situations, wisdom is sitting back looking at you and laughing. I'm telling you, I've been there. I've been in those situations. Like I said, when I'm just like, I shouldn't do this. I know good and well what's going to happen when I do this. I know with every part, every ounce, every part of my being, I shouldn't do it. And then again, it's just like, hey, but I'm here. Let's do it. And the moment I do it and then the consequence happens, listen, wisdom's just sitting back laughing. Not only is she laughing at us, but she's mocking us right in the middle of what we're doing. She's like, I have called out. I've done everything that you've done. It's just like watching those videos, those people walking across the street and tripping and falling or doing something stupid, and you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But you giggle every time. How in the world? I don't know why we laugh at people that fall on their face, but we do. You see those videos all the time, people happen. But she's saying, I will laugh at you. I will mock you. And that just leaves us at the point, listen, we've got two choices to make. We can either accept and leverage wisdom, or we can ignore and live with the consequences. If we want to see our lives change, then we need to step back, take a big old bite of that humble pie, and start looking at all the things that are going on and listen to what wisdom has to say. Look for the people that are around you that are talking and helping you and telling you, listen, I know that you want to get from point A to point B as fast as you can. But there's no wisdom in doing that. There's people that hurry up and start at point A and get to point B in a hurry. They burn out. And they fizzle away. And there's no sustainability in that. It's just like I said, it's like building that house. And if you throw it up in 3 days, that house may stand up for 3 days. But eventually, the wind, the rain, the storms, and everything's going to come, and that house is going to fall. But if you build your life on wisdom, build your life on the fear of the Lord, of the reverence, and listen to the fact that He's there to help you. It may not seem like it. It may not seem like it because we've grown up in a society that says, do what you want to do. You have the right to make the choice to do what you want to do. And in that, our mind, we grab hold of that. I can do what I want to do. I'm an adult. I can do it. But then you see people that will tell you, like, slow down. There's no reason to be in a hurry. Slow down. And we're like, but I don't want to slow down. I want to get there now. I want to get there now. I can think about every time that I do this because I am the world's worst at doing this. When I get in a car and I'm going from point A to point B, I got it planned in my mind. We're going from point A to B. If it takes 11 hours to get to Florida, it takes 11 hours to get to Florida. You pull it up on Google and it says, it takes you 11 hours to get to Florida. We're getting to Florida in 11 hours. There's not going to be any bathroom breaks. Ain't going to be stopping and eating. If we can get there in 11 hours, pack sandwiches, I don't care. We're going to get there in 11 hours. Now here's what happens. By the time I get there and I get you there in 11 hours, everybody in my car is unhappy. Everybody. Including the driver. Why you got to cry the entire time? Aubrey, honey, stop. No, just stop. We've heard what's your name for the 800th time. No, I don't want to hear it. No, stop. Avery, quit touching Aubrey. Avery, no, don't put your... Kaylin, hush. Hannah, do something. All because I want to get to point B as fast as I possibly can. You realize when you take off and you're trying to go somewhere that fast, there's going to be consequences. There's going to be people that you hurt and leave behind. When listen, it's been proven. It doesn't matter how much science there is out there, it doesn't matter. But you hear Cliff talk about, I'm gonna get from here to Raleigh and whatever time it is because I'm gonna do 95 miles an hour to get there. Okay? There's been science to prove that he may show up 10 minutes earlier than he would have if he'd have been doing 55. But in our mind, that's 10 minutes. Every time I turn on my GPS and it says you will be there at 3 o'clock, that's a race for me. You say I'm going to be there at 3, I'm going to be there at 2:55. You watch, I'm going to beat the GPS. I'm going to show the GPS what time it really needs to be there. That's just a suggested time of what we should drive in. It's a race. But if we would just slow down just a little bit, we wouldn't road rage as bad. We wouldn't scream at our kids. We wouldn't do some things that we do because we're in a hurry to get from point A to point B so fast. Wisdom. Wisdom's going to tell you some things you probably don't want to hear. God's going to tell you things you don't want to hear. But He has the plan. As a matter of fact, He created the plan. And if we're smart enough to step back and say, you know what, God? I'm going to seek you. I'm going to seek your counsel. He's right there. He is right there. All those bad decisions I made, all those choices that I made while wisdom was telling me not to do it, and I did it anyway, God got me through the consequence that I went through. It's not what He wanted me to go through. He didn't have that consequence lined up for me, but it was the consequence of my stupidity that got me there. But He helped me all along the way. He never left me. He never forsaken me at all. Never. He was right there in the ditch with me. He didn't want to be, but He was right there in the ditch with me. Continually speaking more wisdom and saying more things. Okay, we're here. Now that we're here, this is what we're going to do. And if we'll stop and just pick up where we are, look at the situation you're in, look at the plans, look at the things that are going on in your life, and stop and say, God, help me. Help me. And sometimes, it's, again, most likely it's not going to be the thing you want to hear. And in most situations, it's going to say, you know what? You should probably go talk to your mama, or talk to your brother, or talk to your neighbor, or talk to your coworker, or talk to somebody. And you're going to be like, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to do those things. But God said that wisdom will lead you into the better things. It will bring about all the things that you're looking for if you'll just follow it. Let's stand.